Hey, Tom, good to see you. We have some big news today. The RMD formula is changing for the first time in decades. We're going to break down whether this is actually good news, though, for retirees. But for the first time in 20 years, the IRS has changed how much we are required to withdraw from our retirement account starting at age 72. So let's just start with what's new here.
Sure. Good to see you again, Erin. One of the big things that is new is the government has changed the date or the age from when you have to start taking the required minimum distributions from 70 and a half to 72. So they've pushed it back a couple of years. So for those people who don't need to take money out of their accounts, then they don't have to for an extra couple of years. One of the other big items that a lot of people have missed is for a non-spouse beneficiary, there really is no option left to do what's called a stretch IRA, where the non-spouse beneficiary could take those distributions on their own over their life expectancy. The rule now really has changed for the most part that a non-spouse beneficiary has to have that inherited retirement account depleted within 10 years date of inheritance. So that's a big deal. But one of the other wrinkles or flies in the ointment there is in certain circumstances, non-spouse beneficiaries may have to still take required minimum distributions during that 10-year period and still have the account emptied out by the 10th year. So it's a big deal. It could be a big, big tax hit to people who aren't planning properly.
Right. Yeah. And we will dive a little bit more into that in a second. But I want to just kind of start with the math behind it. What is an RMD and how are they calculated?
So the RMD stands for required minimum distribution. And it's just a point in time in your retirement life that the government says, hey, we've waited long enough to get our piece of your retirement money. So now you have to start taking money out of your account so that we can start taxing it. Mm-hmm. People have to remember, and I get people who I meet all the time and say, well, I didn't know my 401k or my IRA was going to be taxed. You're just getting a tax deferral or a tax postponement on those accounts. So once those distributions start coming out based on life expectancy, that's when the government is going to start taxing those dollars, just like ordinary income, if you will.
Right. And so this is where the good news, bad news comes into it, right? The money can keep growing tax deferred, which means more money. But then, of course, the larger the distribution, the larger the tax bill.
Exactly. And that is the underlying plan, I believe, of why they're making this change, because they realize if they can wait a couple extra years and people get a couple years more of growth in their account. And we know that tax rates are going higher in the future. The government has already told us that they're going to. They're going to get a larger piece of that pie. And with $30 trillion of debt and $300 trillion of unfunded liabilities, it's simple math, as David Walker tells us, that the taxes have to go higher.
Mm-hmm. And so now you mentioned this before, 401ks. I think a lot of us are familiar with that as far as the RMDs go, but that's why having that tax plan and those Roth accounts and cash value life insurance is so important.
Absolutely. If we're in a discounted tax environment today, then isn't it better to possibly pay lower taxes today on some of that money so that you can have it tax-free in the future? I think it's just really prudent tax planning. Doesn't mean everybody has to do it all in 1 year, right? If you can maybe space it out over a period of time and stay within a lower tax bracket. We already know in 2026 that if Congress does nothing, that tax rates are going to go higher. We already know that. It's written into the law. If things continue the way they are, it may happen sooner and it may happen at a greater rate. So I can't see tax rates going lower for anybody. So I just think it's a prudent part of planning today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well said. That's why having that conversation is so important. The earlier, the better.
Absolutely.
Tom, if somebody has questions, what's the best way to reach you?
TJ O'Connell at internationalfinancial.com, 973-394-0623. Always happy to help anybody.
Yeah. All right, Tom, thank you very much.
Thanks, Erin. Great seeing you.